race is now on for who takes over as chairman of the governing All Progressives Congress (APC) and the scribe of the party, after both Abdullahi Adamu and Yola Omishore unceremoniously resigned their positions as chairman and the secretary. Our senior correspondent, who has been following these developments, tells us more.
For now, Abu Kyari, national chairman, North, is acting as the chairman, while Festus Fuanta, the deputy national secretary, acts as the secretary. What does the party's constitution say concerning replacing the chairman and the secretary, or any other office for that matter? And who are the top contenders for the offices of the chairman and secretary?
Going by the constitution of the APC, have mechanisms of replacement. And it was specific in Article 20 that any post you want to replace or elect or do must go through electoral process. I do not know who are the contenders. I'm not aware that the party have publicly called for nominations. All I heard was that the Governors Forum after the meeting were saying that His Excellency Abdullahi Ganduje should be the next chairman.
Salihu Lukman, the national vice chairman Northwest, on Thursday said that any attempt by the governors to foist former Governor Ganduje of Kano State, a strong TINUBU ally, on the party as chairman will negate inclusivity, a hallmark of progressive politics, and will be politically suicidal. Osita Okechukwu, a political chieftain of the party, responded this way.
Voices in the National Working Committee are saying for equity, fairness, natural justice, that is not central. And to be candid with you, that had been the convention.
Longes Anyanwu says the question of who becomes chairman of the party is strictly an internal party affair. That rather, Nigerians should be asking what policies the government is putting in place to cushion the anxiety emerging from the spiraling inflation as a result of the removal of the petrol subsidy. For him, anyone among those mentioned as contending is qualified to become the party chairman.
Anybody, with due respect, can be the chairman. There are so many considerations that come to play in line with the guideline of the political party. Party is very, very sensitive about its zoning, inclusivity, and all-encompassing policies that give confidence to the party. And mind you, the man at the helm of affairs, who is today the leader of the party, is a well-grounded politician.
On who he thinks fits the bill to take over from Adamu, Anyanwu says,
two of them are former governors. Two of them are experienced politicians. And party has a process of selecting and electing chairman. If they offer themselves and the party accepts them, any one of them is good enough.
Until the party's convention holds to ratify who eventually becomes the chairman and secretary of the party, whoever assumes the mantle of leadership will to a large extent depend on who is more disposed to carrying all stakeholders along, working with the president to actualize the party's manifesto, and strictly adhering to the party's constitution.
We have Arise analyst Mahmoud Jega joining us to discuss this. So good to have you on Newsnight tonight.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll just allow you to calm down a little. Let's look at some of the names being bandied about, to consider for the chairmanship of the APC. Yeah. We've heard of Umar Ganduje, whom some are saying, look, that would be suicidal to even think about Ganduje. Tanko Amakura also appears, whether I'm sure there are other names. But what do you make of the challenges within the political parties, not necessarily just the APC? The simple idea of abiding by the rules of the party, within the party, or even outside of it?
Well,
what seems to be the fundamental problem?
Well, the most important thing to working politicians is loyalty and also electoral value. these things are the most important thing to those on the field of politics. The resignation of Abdullah Adamu was sudden and was surprising, even though some people foresaw it because of some things that happened in the early stages of last year's election, that he didn't support President TINUBU. Although, of course, after the election, for 1 year, he led the National Executive Committee and the Working Committee, and they worked very hard, and they delivered the election, not only to the presidential candidate, but they got so many governors, and they got control of the National Assembly, virtually both chambers. So, but still, probably it had to do with that old question of loyalty. So, if that was the reason why the former chairman was removed, you can begin to see why the same factor will play in the choice of his successor. And I'm not surprised that the name of former Governor Abdullah Umar Ganduje featured prominently, because I think in the whole of the North, probably with the exception of Vice President Kashim Shettima, nobody showed as much personal loyalty to President TINUBU in the last 5 years than Ganduje. He was organizing the TINUBU birthday colloquiums in Kano. He got all those Kano singers, Kano, to be singing all kinds of Hausa songs in praise of TINUBU. And whenever TINUBU went to Kano, he will get hundreds of young men and women dressed in colorful dress, line them up from the airport all the way to the town. He did that for many years when it was even difficult to see TINUBU as the next president. So there is no doubt that he was personally extremely loyal. And possibly that is why the president may want him now. But as you said, there are other considerations like zoning. The prevailing zoning formula of the party was that the North Central Zone produced the chairman where Abdullah Adamu came from. And there is another candidate almost like Abdullah Adamu, that is the former governor of Nasarawa State, Umaru Tanko Al-Makura. He is from the same Nasarawa State. He is also a former governor, and he lost the race to Adamu last year, and I understand he is still in contention this year. So that is also an important criteria, but there are also others that are clamoring. Yes.
Interesting, but then let's over and beyond the candidates or the aspirants that are being touted for these positions. Let's take a look at what the party constitution says about replacing the chairman or the secretary or even any other officer for that matter.
Well, that one is clear enough that if the party chairman resigns, then the deputy national chairman from his zone, because there are two deputy national chairmen, one north and one south, that the deputy national chairman from his zone will act, but that is just to act. Now that's different from, and that's already happening. Senator Abubakar Kari from Borno State is now the acting chairman because of that constitutional provision.
Yeah, but the replacement, not just in an acting capacity, the substantive replacement.
That one I don't think is covered by that provision, because the party can always sit down and rezone if it wants. Because as you can see, this zoning of party national offices was done before the election. This was done last year. Now since then, many things have changed, because you now have a president, you now have vice president, you have senate president and speaker and so many other things. So if the party likes, for other reasons, it can change the zoning formula. I don't think that one is covered by.
How advisable will that be at a time like this? I mean, when you hear people, say, look, in the name of equity, in the name of fairness, that it will only be proper and fitting to stay in the North Central.
Well, you see, the party National Executive Committee has the power to zone this position to any part of the country using political considerations, like where we got the most votes or where we expect to get votes in the next election, or which part thinks we have not been fair to it. And I don't think we can take away that right.
Yeah, but what kind of chairman does the APC need now?
Well,
what should the APC be considering in picking the next chairman?
Well, From outside, if you are looking from outside,
Yeah.
you will say, well, you know, you need a very experienced politician of fairly advanced age, well experienced, who is moderate in his things, who is a very good balancer and conciliator, not a controversial kind of fellow who will worsen problems. From outside, that's what you will say. But of course, from the inside, loyalty and which faction you belong to and which of the original components of the party you belong to, whether CPC or ACN or AMPP or the ABGA faction or even the PDP breakaway faction that came, these other considerations will come in.
But then, how does the party now ensure a balance, such that a happy medium, such that these vested interests, these considerations do not now turn to boomerang and then make them bring in a chairman who would yet again be even more controversial than the last one?
There is no way to ensure that in a perfect manner. You can only continue experimenting. Just like nation building a virile and united party is an ongoing process. Just do what you can now based on the realities of the moment. Elect a chairman. If it turns out to be a mistake, you remove him down the line and change. I suppose that's what they did just now. This chairman has been in office for only 1 year. And
yeah, but it's worrisome when they're all booted out. I mean, more or less, the last 4 have actually to leave the party in the same, similar circumstances. Thank you so much, Mahmoud Jega, Rise analyst, for joining us.